Call of Duty as a franchise almost seems too big to fail at this point. Regardless of how you feel of the series today, it's impossible to ignore its impact on the industry. Call of Duty has influenced how modern shooters are designed, set new standards in multiplayer matchmaking, and influenced how modern AAA games are marketed today. For better or worse, every year the series dominates sales charts, headlines, and online discussions. But it wasn't always this way. Before Call of Duty was a massive franchise, it was a gamble. A small group of ambitious developers hedging their bets on what they thought the next generation of first-person shooter could be. And, you know what? It paid off. Maybe even a little too well. And then, right in the middle of their biggest success, almost half of the development studio would resign, and the fate of the franchise would find itself hanging by a thread. On July 24th, 1998, Steven Spielberg premiered his new World War II movie, Saving Private Ryan, a harrowing portrayal of the courage and sacrifice of the American soldiers on the Western Front. Steven Spielberg has always been fascinated with World War II, and after directing Saving Private Ryan, he wanted to translate that fascination over into an interactive experience. Inspired by his teenage son's love of GoldenEye 007 on the Nintendo 64, he sought to create a game that was both educational and entertaining. A way to teach players about the experiences and events of World War II through play. His collaboration with DreamWorks Interactive would lead to the development of Medal of Honor, a first-person shooter exclusively available on the original PlayStation. The game was a hit, selling over 2.5 million copies and spawning a sequel just a year later. But it was Medal of Honor Allied Assault in 2002 that would really define the series. Developed by a small team at DreamWorks Interactive, soon to become EA Los Angeles, the PC-exclusive title sold nearly 1 million copies. A major success in an era where PC gaming wasn't nearly as popular as it is today. Shortly after Allied Assault's release, a group of key developers grew frustrated with EA's management and alleged withholdings of bonuses. These frustrations, along with their desire for more creative control, led them to leave the company and form their own studio, Infinity Ward. Led by Grant Collier, Jason West, and Vince Zampella, their mission was simple but ambitious: to create a World War II shooter that felt alive. One where you weren't a lone action hero, but part of a squad, where the chaos of battle felt more real, where squad mates would assist in combat, and where you saw the conflict from multiple sides, not just the American perspective. Released in 2003 for PC and developed by a team of just over 20 people, Call of Duty was built on a heavily modified version of the Quake 3 engine, allowing for large-scale battles and detailed environments far beyond what most shooters could achieve at the time. Infinity Ward focused on cinematic realism, from the immersive echo of gunfire to the chaos of artillery shells, and introduced squad behaviors that made players feel like part of a living, breathing front line, rather than a lone hero. Critics praised its immersive direction and film-like intensity, and players responded in kind. The game sold over 1.5 million copies on PC, and with its console counterpart, Call of Duty Finest Hour, the franchise went on to surpass 4.5 million units sold worldwide within its first few years. After Call of Duty, Infinity Ward doubled down on their ambitions to immediately begin work on their sequel, Call of Duty 2. Vince Zampella recalled being dead set against World War II as a setting for its sequel, but Activision, unsure about the risks, pushed back, insisting that a World War II setting was the safer bet. Throughout development, the tension between wanting to innovate and needing to satisfy expectations started to shape the studio's identity. Call of Duty 2 hit store shelves in 2005, and for the Xbox 360 version, it sold more than 250,000 copies in its first week, a strong start for a console that had only just launched. Call of Duty 2 expanded the scale. 4 campaigns, 27 missions, and perspectives from the US, British, and Red Army. The visuals were improved, the soundscape was more immersive, and the AI more advanced. All of this tuned to make the chaos of war feel immediate. For many players, COD 2 was the definitive World War II shooter. It raised the bar in multiplayer gameplay and helped popularize the Xbox Live experience on the 360. The sequel ended up becoming a big leap for the franchise. Critical praise, commercial success, and enough momentum to allow them to suggest a radical shift for their next game. It was this moment where the studio realized how far they could push, and also how tight the rope they were walking had become. Infinity Ward wanted to move forward. They wanted to explore modern conflicts and new technology, and with the success of Call of Duty 2, they were able to do so. In 2007, Infinity Ward would release Call of Duty 4: Modern Warfare.
Get down now.
The success of Modern Warfare was monumental. It was so successful both critically and commercially that it set new standards in what players expected out of AAA games. While Call of Duty 4 wasn't the first game to do the modern military theme, it was so successful with its execution and reception that it basically signaled to publishers that World War II as a genre was out and modern military combat was in. Released in 2007, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare was a total change in both tone and design for the franchise. Infinity Ward's newest entry introduced a contemporary setting, advanced weapon systems, and a narrative that blended Hollywood pacing with geopolitical tension. The single-player campaign was praised for its storytelling, memorable set pieces like All Gillied Up, and a fluid combat system that pushed the boundaries of what players expected from a first-person shooter. Its multiplayer mode introduced the now standard progression system, including custom loadouts, kill streaks, and persistent ranks, revolutionizing online play. Critics hailed the game as a breakthrough in modern game design and presentation, with IGN writing, "It's not just the best Call of Duty game ever made, but maybe the best game ever made." The following year, Treyarch would release Call of Duty World at War, a commercially and critically successful game in its own right, but for many players, especially with it being a World War II game, was just an installment to hold them over until the next Modern Warfare title, a sequel that was aiming to be one of the biggest games of the decade. Infinity Ward suddenly found itself under immense pressure. They had not only reinvented Call of Duty as a franchise, but they had also set a new standard in the first-person shooter genre. Activision, recognizing the success of Modern Warfare, demanded a sequel that would surpass its predecessor, both in terms of scale and impact. Development on Modern Warfare 2 was intense. The team pushed for bigger set pieces, a more cinematic campaign, and an online multiplayer mode that would outdo its predecessor. Behind the scenes, the studio was feeling the strain. Long hours, creative differences, and disagreements between Infinity Ward and Activision were starting to show. When Modern Warfare 2 released in 2009, it shattered expectations, dominating the sales charts, breaking records, and becoming its own pop culture event in its own right. It was a high point for the Call of Duty franchise, but the beginning of a slow unraveling for the studio behind it.
We got it, sir! Good. That's one less loose end.
Modern Warfare 2 was a crowning achievement for Infinity Ward, representative of the team's hard work and innovation in the multiplayer FPS genre. And then, that following year, co-founders Jason West and Vince Zampella would find themselves being escorted out of the building, fired from the very team that they helped create. In a LinkedIn article, former staffer Paul Sandler detailed the firings.
The fact that our respected studio heads, our leaders, had been canned in such a sudden and cold-blooded fashion brought the entire team a collective feeling of anger and a deep sense of unfairness. Many on the team became vocal about quitting in solidarity with them, and this idea was quickly spreading. In an attempt to remove the studio heads while retaining the development team, Activision had stepped on a metaphorical landmine. They were about to lose nearly half of the entire studio, putting the development of Modern Warfare 3 at risk.
Activision and Infinity Ward's founders had been at odds regarding the Call of Duty series. West and Zampella sought creative control and independence over the franchise. With the success of Modern Warfare 2, they tried to renegotiate their contracts, securing bonuses and partial control over the Modern Warfare name. while Activision would ultimately keep the overall Call of Duty franchise. However, control would revert back to Activision if Jason and Vince were to be let go from the company. In March of 2010, the two founders were fired for an alleged breach of contract, according to Activision. This led to widespread anger and feelings of betrayal across the studio, culminating in nearly half of the staff resigning in solidarity. Sandler recalled the tense company meeting.
There was an emergency company meeting in the kitchen space. A group of top Activision high-ups were already at the studio, ready to steady the ship. The Infinity Ward team piled into the kitchen and glared at the group of executives standing behind the long kitchen island table. One of them tried explaining what was happening, which nobody on the development team bought or cared for. Then a team member asked bluntly if we were going to be paid the bonuses we've already earned for shipping Modern Warfare 2. Reading the tense vibe in the room, another executive took his turn. Paraphrasing, he said, "Guys, if you stay with the studio to make Modern Warfare 3, you will receive your MW2 bonuses, and we will also give everyone a 50% salary increase." He paused slightly before repeating, "That is a 5 and a 0, 50%. The looks on the people's faces did not change. If anything, most of the team was feeling even more upset. The executive spoke again. "Look, I get it. I know this is a tough situation, but just take the money and get over it." I specifically remember him telling us to get over it.
Over the following weeks, Infinity Ward team members began quitting. Some alone, others in groups. They went door to door, saying goodbye to colleagues as they left. Approximately 40 developers resigned this way. The total headcount of Infinity Ward only being around 100 employees, Activision had inadvertently splintered one of its flagship studios. West and Zampella filed a lawsuit, claiming Activision and CEO Bobby Kotick unfairly fired them and withheld promised bonuses. Activision countersued, describing the co-founders as small-minded executives obsessed by jealousy of other developers, who had become disloyal. The dispute also involved something called the Icebreaker Project, which allegedly allowed Activision executives to monitor employee emails. The lawsuit was eventually settled out of court for an undisclosed amount in May 2012.
All warfare is based on deception.
During the lawsuit, major problems were arriving for the Call of Duty franchise. With its initial dev team now in shambles due to a mass exodus, the third installment of the Modern Warfare trilogy was at risk. In a frenzy to finish the game and have it ready for its yearly release window, Activision acquired the help from Sledgehammer Games and Raven Software to assist the remaining Infinity Ward team to finish the game. Sledgehammer and Infinity Ward had to do some back and forth to figure out how to work together while keeping the success of Modern Warfare 2 alive. In an interview with The Guardian, Sledgehammer's Glenn Schofield recalled the early stages of collaboration.
We started sitting around a table down at Infinity Ward with probably 5 or 6 members from each team. They had some 3x5 cards filled with ideas, and we did as well. We were just feeling our way around each other, but we'd come to the same conclusions.
Fortunately, even though Infinity Ward was now half of its original size, the team was very familiar with its game engine, the universe, and the design language required to successfully launch the new sequel, especially with the help from the allied studios. Despite its challenges, Modern Warfare 3 was a critical and commercial success. The game launched in 2011, selling more than 6.5 million copies in its first 24 hours in North America and the UK alone. While not praised as heavily as the first two Modern Warfare entries, critics noted that the game was less about innovation and more about the refinement of an already beloved formula.
Stand by for Titanfall!
So, after the litigation and the completion of the Modern Warfare trilogy, what became of Infinity Ward's original 3 founders? Jason West and Vince Zampella, along with other Infinity Ward employees, went on to form a new development studio, Respawn Entertainment. The studio found early success with Titanfall, and after its sequel, Titanfall 2, Respawn would be acquired by Electronic Arts shortly after. Grant Collier largely stayed out of the public eye, continuing to work at Infinity Ward and stepping away from any of the discourse during the company's difficult time. Fast forward to 2025, and Vince Zampella, now overseeing EA's Battlefield division, leads the development of Battlefield 6. An almost full circle moment, giving a new generation of players a high-profile, modern military shooter from one of the original creators who helped redefine the genre years earlier. Call of Duty as a franchise has become almost too big to fail. Whether or not that's actually true will only be decided over time. So what's the takeaway? Making games is hard. Really hard. The labor from the developers, even on entries you might not like, is often underappreciated. Juggling massive amounts of digital assets, collaborating with teams large and small to meet impossible deadlines and sky-high expectations is so grueling that if a game ships at all, it's practically a miracle in and of itself. And if there's ever a mess behind the scenes, well, chances are there's usually an overreaching publisher or executive to blame.
Ready?
Hey, welcome to Infinity Ward. Come on in.
So glad you can make it today.